Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 4 of City Talk. This week we are joined by Billy Woods. Welcome, Billy.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So, just to take you through this week's episode, we're going to go through what Billy is up to now, his stints at City, and his kind of varied career throughout his life so far. So, it's a bit of a different podcast this week. Looking forward to kind of getting stuck into it. Billy, you're a secondary school PE and history teacher at the moment, is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, below in Glanmire Community College. Yeah.
Excellent. And obviously the school's been off at the moment and for the last couple of months and due to be for the next couple of months. How have you been getting on? How are you finding it? How is your working life been at the moment?
It's been difficult. It's been busy actually. We've like this now. We've started Zoom classes with the students. So for history, first, second, third years, you're putting up work, and then you've got Zoom classes, and you're obviously giving feedback on the work. It's been difficult for teachers but it's also been very difficult for the students in trying to engage with it. And I know I've got 3 small kids here, whatever, trying to get the work done and try to keep them in a routine. It's been challenging, but we're obviously finished now for the academic year. So in one sense, I think the children and their students will be glad to be back into a routine once September comes around again.
I think so, yeah. And look, obviously I have 2 young lads myself, and you're dead right. It's difficult trying to keep them in the routine and doing the work. But even as a PE teacher, I suppose, and it's probably a bit easier to shell out the work, I'd imagine, for the history subject. You kind of follow the work maybe that you'd be doing in the classroom. But as a PE teacher, are you setting out exercises for the students and stuff like that, or how?
Yeah, we did from first, second, third year. We put up classes, and obviously we gave them links to like Joe Wicks, the body coach, and all those little routines, and working from home, little routines and hits from home and stuff. But again, it's very difficult. You're trying to get a student into a routine when they're at home and everything that they've done for the last 15, 16 years, the routine has gone out the window. So it's just trying to keep them active mentally. Their mental health and their mental well-being is very important also. So we just said, listen, if you can go for a walk for 20 minutes activity per day, whatever you can do to be active for your mental well-being as well as your physical well-being.
Yeah, and it's been a bit of a funny one in that regard, because you think with the lockdown like that, it would be, like difficult to come to it. But like you've actually probably never seen so many people out running and being actually conscious of getting exercise in than people are at the moment. And, I suppose whether it's parents or kids themselves being conscious of getting out and actually getting exercise done throughout the day, it seems to be a lot more prominent. I know people generally will be pretty busy throughout their day and they'd have training sessions, so on and so forth, but people seem to be keeping pretty active, which is good to see.
It is, yeah. I suppose you look at it now. I mean, the whole world has changed in terms of people, their work schedules are gone, so they're finding the half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour during the day where they can go for a walk, and it's great to see people active and been out there.
Yeah, and I suppose, look, what we'll do is we'll come back to how I suppose you've gotten to that point as a teacher at the moment, and it's been an interesting journey. But we've had Garrod on the last couple of weeks. We had Colin on the week before that. It's something that you've gone through yourself, is the whole kind of going over to England as a kind of young kid. And look, I'm kind of fascinated to get to know. It obviously would have been maybe before Garrod's time, a little bit before Colin's time. It was probably, football was a little bit different back then. Talk us through that. How did that come about? What age were you? Where did you go? And how was it for you?
So I suppose like any young lad or young girl that plays, I would have started off with my schoolboy club, which was Middleton in East Cork. So I would have played from them the whole way growing up. And then at 15, 16, you're on Cork teams, you're up and down for international trials. And I didn't make the international team at 15, 16. And then I was fortunate that there was a guy who joined Middleton. He came back from Cove Ramblers. His name was Liam McMahon. I don't know if you know him, but he passed away. Liam just passed away this year, but Liam would have been involved with Ramblers when they had a brilliant team. They would have won the Intermediate Cups every year, Munster League champions. They would have got to the FAI Cup semi-final in '83. Would have played Sligo Rovers in 4 games and were 2 up actually in the semi-final. Ended up losing 3-2 to Sligo. But Liam joined Middleton, and so he kind of was managing the senior team with Liam O'Brien, who was an international, the under-15 international coach. So they were number 1 and number 2. So Liam was probably the first coach I ever had, Liam McMahon, and he kind of brought me in around the Munster League team at 16. So in terms of my development, he was the first coach I had. Brilliant, old school, hard as nails, but drilled it into you how to play. So I at the time I was an out centre forward, and so he just taught me. Like, he brought my game on leaps and bounds. Really, like, I was extremely raw. Like, I could run, but I was raw. But he brought my game on leaps and bounds. And so from there, I kind of was playing once in the league at 16, 17. Was on the Irish schools team, and then a guy from Coventry, a coach or a scout from Coventry, contacted my parents and asked me would I go on trial. So that was saying the September of my leaving cert year. I went over on trial.
What age would you been then, Billy?
16.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. So I went slightly later. So, and that was September. So Coventry wanted to sign me then. And then I came back and I said to my dad, listen, I'd rather do my leaving cert. And he said, yeah, do your leaving cert. So I said to them, look, I'll sign if they wanted me to sign after my leaving cert. So then they agreed to that. So then I was going over in October, Christmas, midterm break, the whole way through my leaving cert year. So in one sense, it was great. In another sense, it was bad, because academically then you're saying, well, I'm gone at the end of the year. So your motivation kind of wanes, some of it. So I signed for them when I was 17 and a half in 91. And at the time, that was the old, just before the Premier League, it was Division 1. So from 91 to 92, there was Division 1. 92, then the Premier League formed. And Coventry City was a small club, but brilliant club, really. And so that was my signing, really. And at the time, there was a lot of Irish lads there. And I don't know if you remember Tony Sheridan, he would have played with Shelbourne. Brilliant player, like gifted. Jerry Carr, played for Sligo, scored the winner in the 94 Cup final. He was there. Steve Williams, who's at Dundalk now, goalkeeping coach, he was there. Willie Boland, who had a great career with Cardiff.
He a bit of an Irish contingent there, so
there was loads. There were 7 or 8, and there was a couple of boys there that would have played for Ireland, but would have been Irish parents and brought up in England. But so it was great. I was there for 2 and a bit years. Enjoyed it. Never really got near the first team. Was playing youth team reserves. To be honest with you, the jump probably at the time for me was probably too big, really, to play Premier League from where I was, really. And so I came back in '93 to Cork City then. Made my debut
Just to go back on that, I suppose, and that is something that Garrod touched on last week, that if he had his time over again, that he would maybe, you were obviously conscious about getting the leaving cert and getting a bit of education behind you. Is that something that, and I think it'll probably be a prominent theme throughout the podcast, but is that something that you were always conscious of? Like, you know, as I said, you were taking a little bit of a risk, aren't you? You know, like saying, look, hold off until I have my leaving cert done. It was a year and a half. A lot could have changed in that time. It is a bit of a chance you're taking, like, isn't it? You know, I think it's not something that every young player or family would decision they take. Like, you know, it's a tricky one.
It is a massive decision, and I suppose at the time my parents would have been, listen, you know, finish your school, finish your education. And I was like, you know, your head is turned when you get an English club coming on to you, and you think you'll never get an opportunity again. But I'm glad I made the decision to stay where I was. Like, I don't think I lost out in the whole pile. I was over every 5 or 6 weeks. I was over and back to England, you know, playing games on the Saturdays. But in terms of, like, I mean, you get one opportunity to complete your leaving cert. So that was, from my point of view, was the decision. I made the right decision there. But I understand boys that go on 15 and 16. Everybody's story is different. You know, I was never going to be like one of those kids of 15 and 16 that had every club in England chasing them and offering them this and that. You know, I was never at that level where, you know, you get the boys that are in international teams now, they're banging down the doors, agents, clubs. I wasn't. I mean, it was different back then too, in a sense. But I know it was the decision I made with my parents, and I was glad I did it in the end. Really, I felt, even going to 17 and a half, I was still immature. You know, most kids come out of school at 19 now.
That's right. Obviously, when you said 16 there all around, you obviously maybe skipped it. Was it the transition year?
We didn't have transition year when I was, back in the days.
So on your age there, would see.
Yeah.
But
I know.
It's like, just kind of go through. You came back. You were Coventry, I think, City, Tranmere, Blackpool, Portadown, Shamrock Rovers, Cork City, on probably 2 separate stints, and then as a coach. So we'll look to go through as much as that as we can. So you touched on Coventry. Obviously, look, you went over, didn't quite work out. You touched on the level there. You said was kind of probably a few levels ahead of you. Do you think the way that the League of Ireland have structured let's say the 13s, 15s, 17s, 19s now, you know, and Colin spoke about the way they're trained and drilled, and obviously you were part of that as well. do you think they're on a much better platform now when they're heading over, let's say, because Garrod touched on the last week, he went over to Blackburn after doing a pre-season used to doing pre-season with Ringmahon, and it was like a completely different, and that's no disrespect to local clubs, that's just what you're working with, and you're going over there into a full steam ahead professional setup. Is it a bit of a reality check, and are the players more set up now, you think?
They are in one sense, but I suppose you've got to justify that by looking at across the water and the level it's at over there. So obviously, the way we are Cork City now, right? Obviously, you've got the underage academy, and that's great, and the coaching is gone up a level, and the players from where they're coming from. And as you said, the schoolboy clubs do a fantastic job. But I suppose you want the best players playing against the best players, and that was the whole point of Reid Locklear, bringing in the 13s, 15s, 17s. Yeah. But you go across the water and you look at the level, the amount of players at Chelsea, if you're talking about Premier League clubs and the amount of the kids they have, the bar has been raised across the board from when I was playing as a U-team player, that way. So it's great. The academy here is great, and what we're trying to do and trying to progress players into the first team, that's a club like Cork City has to do that, and has always done that. To compare to England, I don't know, but if you look at underage in England and where they're bringing players in from all over, never I was there, so you would think that the level has gone up again, but that's I don't know. I suppose international managers Colin O'Brien, they can tell you all that in terms of England, but that's where we are in Ireland anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you came back to City then. What did you say that was 90, 92, 93?
I came back in October 93 and signed for Cork. And the City had just played Galatasaray that time, and they had just won the league the previous year.
What age would you have been then? So you would have been maybe 20,
nearly 20,
okay.
Nearly 20, yeah. So signed in 93, made my debut in October 93. Then came back, and I suppose Cork City were part-time, but I have to say, in terms of professionalism, the likes of that 93 team, they were incredible athletes. They didn't have the coaching that would say the game is different from 20 years ago, but in terms of attitude, Declan Daly, Dave Barry, Lee Murphy, Ferguson Donoghue, Stephen Neighbour, unbelievable professionals. Unbelievable. They worked, they trained every evening. Sometimes you can go to training and you talk about intensity. Their sessions are unbelievable. They literally kicked lumps out of each other at it from the first whistle to the end. The games are different. It was more physical, but unbelievable professionals. And to me, it was the best thing that happened to me to train with them. So I was a centre forward, and you Caulfield and Morley, and they were ridiculously good. The two of them were, Pat Morley was class, and Caulfield was a workhorse. But so from my point of view, to come into that environment, it was difficult in one sense because I couldn't get in until the following season. But it was great, and they were great to me. Caulfield, Morley, Declan Daly, and they were listen, they're club diehards, and they're great people. That was so they were fantastic to me as a kid coming back from England. You're disappointed to come home, but listen, they work with you, to speak to you, to talk to you. There was no them and us. They brought you into the environment straight away.
I think the results in Europe probably showed how good they actually were. Weren't they? The Bayern Munich results, putting it up to the likes of the Galatasaray probably just shows. It probably goes under the radar slightly, doesn't it? How
it does. And listen, and in one sense, really, I think they won one league, and they probably, for the team they probably should have won more.
Right.
But they were unbelievable professionals, and listen, unbelievable servants to the club down the years, in on and off the pitch, really.
Yeah. So you spoke back then. Was it a centre forward so that you actually played mostly as a? Jesus, that's news to me.
Always. That was I ended up actually, the only reason I ended up playing left wing is because you Morley and Caulfield, and obviously you weren't going to dislodge the two of them. So and then I ended up playing left wing.
Yeah, I think I seen you calling yourself Polyfilla on Twitter the gamble, didn't I? Because that's what I remember from you. You used to kind of play, right wing, left back, even you played a lot of different, and you were kind of both footed as well. That's something that struck me when you used to be coming down training with us. 2 feet, so obviously you were an asset that way. You were kind of a utility player, really, as in you were comfortable playing a lot of different positions. Yeah,
well, listen, I suppose I would have. As I said, I would have played centre forward till I was 20, and then I ended up going left wing because of John and Pat. And then you're comfortable. I didn't mind playing on right or left, but I was probably always more comfortable playing left. And then the first time I ever played left back was in an under-21 international game against England. We went over to Newcastle and we played England, and the Marcellers just said to me, I'm playing you left back. And I looked at him saying, oh my God, I never played left back in my life. Like, to be fair, I don't think he even knew I was. And that's not, I'm not trying to say. So anyway, I ended up playing left back. And then you end up playing there. And then you kind of left back, left wing. So that was it for the rest of my career then after that. So I didn't mind it.
So you then your next moves, Tranmere, Blackpool. Talk us through. So did it come to a stage where you playing away with City, or you were kind of thereabouts in the first team? And how did that move come about then? Because you must have been doing pretty well again to get another move over. Like,
so I had played with City. I had a good year. I got 15 or 16 goals. Played left wing. I won Young Player of the Year in the
that
League
was
of Ireland.
1995, was it?
95. Yeah, I was on the League of Ireland team. We played Gothenburg. So we 3 or 4 games, and I did well in all those games. And then there was clubs. I knew there was clubs around sniffing, like, so. And then I had, like, basically it came. There was Crewe Alexander, Peterborough, Tranmere, and I think it was Luton too. But so basically I had a choice of 3 clubs, and at the end of that season, so to sign for. So I went to Tranmere, spoke to Crewe. So at Crewe at the time, right? There was a friend of mine at Crewe, and Crewe at the time, their midfield was Roy Savage, Neil Lennon, Danny Murphy. And I went to Crewe, and I spoke to Crewe, and I spoke to Dario Gradi, and he said, look, you come, you'll play left wing. And then I went to Tranmere, and I spoke to Tranmere, and I said, listen, Tranmere Championship, Crewe were League One. I made the wrong move, really. My dad was saying, listen, sign for Crewe. And I said, no, I just fancy Tranmere. Anyway, I made the wrong choice.
But they were playing at a higher level, like, was it?
Yeah. Listen, it was a bigger club. Crewe was small at the time, but But I suppose, listen, there was, you make a decision, and so I went to Tranmere, had a great pre-season, was flying. First game of the season, thought I was going to be starting, wasn't even on the bench, and I said, I knew.
Was John Aldridge the manager then? Was that
following year?
Afterwards, did I see a picture of you with, they went on a few cup runs around then and all that today?
That was later. Was later. So I actually made my debut with Aldo, but that was later, yeah. So John Aldridge became the manager, and he did really well actually at Tranmere. Yeah. So, but Aldo played when I was there. Liam O'Brien was there. Gary Stevens played for England. So listen, Pat Nevin, it was great club, great players, and to be honest with you, around that time they were always chasing the Premier League. They were always around the Championship playoffs and doing really well and stuff like that. So then I wasn't playing. Went for a month on loan to Blackpool under Gary Megson, Mickey Phelan, and played 6 or 7 games at Blackpool, and then. That was my contract is up, so I had a decision then to come home or to sign for Preston. I decided I had enough of England, to be honest, which I just felt I wasn't.
What age were you then?
24,
right.
23, okay. 24. So I made a decision to come back. Then I didn't want to stay. I felt that if I was going to play, I was going to be in and out of teams, and so that was a big decision at the time. My girlfriend at the time was university. My wife at the time but she was in university in England at the time, so. We had a decision to make, so she stayed. She had a year to finish her degree, and I had enough. So I came back then. Again, we're back and went to UCD then to go to college in UCD. So that was my stint in England done.
Yeah, it's actually something very similar to the Garrod we were speaking to last week. Went over young, came back, went back over again, and it wasn't for him, I suppose. Totally. Is that something that you felt yourself, like that you'd kind of given it a go and? It just wasn't for you, or did you feel like you said there that you maybe weren't up to the, I suppose, being in and out of teams, that you weren't going to be totally happy in that scenario, was it?
Well, I suppose there's so many factors to playing in England. It's, when you hear people go and play, and I suppose it comes down to a couple of things really. You go to a club, and if the manager likes you and plays you, and you've got an opportunity playing every week, that's great. Or if you go and you feel that it doesn't matter what you do, that you're never going to be, play 40 games a year.
Right.
Now, maybe if I'd have gone down to League Two or, League One, League Two, but I was like, I went to Championship and I played at Blackpool, and I was comfortable at that level, to be honest with you.
Right.
And felt I could have had a career at that level. Really, not easily, obviously, but I felt I was capable of playing at that level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I just had enough, really. I just had enough. And I think mentally it's very tough. You go to England and you feel that you're capable, and then you come to a party saying, "Geez, this isn't for me. I'm just not happy."
And was it down to homesickness, or was it just a pure footballing decision?
Pure footballing decision. Listen, And I said to the kids we had underage at Cork, so you don't realise how ruthless football is. You know, and you hear Colin's story, you hear Garrod's story, you hear Neil Fenn's story, and they all think, listen, it's cutthroat. It's cutthroat. You know, your face has got to, your face has got to fit at clubs. You've got to play the game at clubs. And maybe I just didn't, in terms of dealing with people, and maybe I just was, an independent thinker. I didn't want to be caught up on that. So I just had enough in the end and decided to come back. So that's
So you came back then, and I know you just didn't Portadown, but Shamrock Rovers is obviously something that you get reminded quite a lot about from City fans. But were you studying in Dublin at the time?
I was in UCD. I was in UCD at the time. So I had a year. So I signed a 2-year Rovers, came back, was in UCD. And then Damien Richardson ended up becoming the manager. And Damien had been my manager at Cork for 2 years, a year and a half. And I had a great relationship with Damien. I ended up playing for Damien for nearly 7.5 years.
Yeah.
So he became the manager at Rovers. I loved my time at Rovers, great club. We were just nomadic in the sense that we couldn't get, they were trying to build Tala. Yeah. It was all up in the air. Joe Caldwell was the chairman, and we had a good team, but we just were bouncing from ground to ground every week. We'd no home game as such. And we actually ended up training in Tala at times. But we just couldn't, they just couldn't get it going. But it was a great club. I had 3 years under Damien there. We were thereabouts. We just probably didn't have enough to qualify or to win a league in this. But I made the decision in 2002. Then my wife had actually come back to Cork, and I was living in Dublin, so I came back down to Cork then.
So who would have been the manager in 2000? Was it Liam Murphy?
Murph, yeah. So I played.
Murph was brilliant, actually. I think a Cork City person and a coach. I obviously wouldn't have seen him as a player, but when I was in the academy there, Murph was like unbelievable. The first person that I've ever gotten proper coaching off, let's say, that really knew the football, who was experienced, his sessions. He was a great person around the club, I thought, at the time, but.
So Murph is quiet bloke. When he came back, quiet as mouse, but as hard as nails. As a footballer, you could trust him. He could play anywhere, right back, left back, hard as nails. Great lad. He ended up signing. So you think of the players Murph brought through. So you had Alan Bennett, Killian Lorden, Nults, Flinney, Georgie, Alan Carey.
I think when he was our manager at the time, he was our manager, I think, under 17s and 18s or something like that. But was he like the director of football or something at the same time? I think he sorted out the first team's contracts and all that kind of stuff. Is that right?
So when he stood down in 2002, Pat Dolan came in and Murph was still involved pretty much up until 2006, 2007.
Yeah,
was running the underage structure, was involved with the first team in that sense, and
the link with Stefan AF and all that worked kind of well, didn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the boys would have gone there, like Shane Long would have gone there now and stuff too. So so I came back in 2002, and that was it was a young team coming through at that time, and for me coming back to be myself and Colin O'Brien probably. And Mick Devine are probably the oldest three. And then we had a very young, Rennie came in for a year, but we had a very young team. And you, Flinney and Georgie, who lit the place up the first year they came back then. Yeah.
And I suppose that was your kind of, you coming back to the club then, you were, I remember Georgie saying before that some of the players were actually full-time and then some of the players were part-time. Is that right? And would it that been the time that you went back? Did you make the decision, look, I'm going back to work rather than trying to the full-time stuff?
Yeah, I felt mentally from my own point of view that it was better for me to work because like when I was in England, I just felt I was brewing and stuff every day of the week. So you go to training, you'd have a good day in training, you'd have a bad day in training. So if you had a bad day in training, you're sitting in the house on your own saying, geez, like, you're just obsessed. There was nothing else. And I felt that from my point of view, I worked better, I played better when I was working. Distraction. I could go to training, come back, you had a job, you had a focus. And football was a bonus to me in that sense, really. But there was like work.
Do you think you kind of approached it in a bit more of a relaxed, rather than the pressure of like, I suppose, playing, and especially in League of Ireland, playing on a year-to-year contract, and if it's your sole income, it's a different pressure really than the actual playing itself, isn't it?
It is. It is. And listen, especially in League of Ireland when it's short-term contracts, really. But was I more relaxed about it? No, I was still as intense as ever about playing for Cork City and winning stuff. But it just, from my personal headspace, it was better for me to work. Now, obviously, in one regard, and you're selling yourself short because you can't train with the lads every day. So
Yeah.
you're at that disadvantage. But I didn't mind that, and
During that time, when Murph was there, did he train in the mornings or was it in the evenings, or
Stefan
when did that change?
and Stefan, the lads train in the mornings, and then sometimes they came in the evenings. Myself and Colin would come in the evenings then with the lads, and then I suppose when Pat came in, then I think Pat came in 2003, and then it was they were all full time. They were all the lads. But sometimes, to be fair to Pat, then he worked around myself and Colin that we would train. They might train at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that, and then ended up in a case where myself and Colin O'Brien would meet Pat in Rochestone Park to run on the treadmill with him at 7 o'clock in the morning before we went to work and stuff like that. But I think the whole thing changed really under Pat in the sense that you had Dan Murray came over, and then everybody was full time except myself and Colin O'Brien, and then that was it. Then it was a full time environment, and I mean, it suited Benno, all those Flinney, Georgie, all those lads. They were full time every day, so they got the benefit of that. Then I think.
Yeah, and I suppose you were kind of on the cusp of a wave of success, really, under Pat. Like, weren't you? You could see that the team and the club were making strides, kind of year on year. I suppose starting from Murph's era right into the development of Georgie, like that, like in Flinney, they all started getting a bit older, more mature, and then when the Rico came, he had that success. But I suppose give people from your point of view, when I was playing in the under-21, just you used to be training with us really on a Tuesday and Thursday, like like I suppose that's something that people don't really see, like, from the outside. Talk us through that. How did you find that? Because I suppose some players might think, out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. How did you find it? Did you find a bit of that, or?
I suppose that was more under Damien, really. Like under Pat, he would have
he integrated you a bit more.
Yeah, no, in fairness, Damien did too, but I just like I suppose, and just go back to Pat there, like, the level of professionalism went up with Pat, really. Like, listen, if you played on the Pat, you'd know how intense it was. He brought in Fenny too. He drilled us really, and it was brilliant. We'd done well in Europe. We had the run in Europe against Malmo. And then for whatever reason, Pat left in 2005. Damien comes in. I knew Damien. I'd worked under Damien. Great man. But Damien was different. There were two different people. Like, Pat was very intense. Damien was more relaxed.
Yeah.
And under Damien, then listen, you get to train. Like, he was more concerned about what you did on the Friday night, rather about what you did in the week. Whereas Pat was the other way. Then Pat was like, you got to be out of every day. Two different people. It worked. Like, obviously Damien had the boys every morning training with him then, but so yeah, towards the end, then I ended up training with the 21s or whatever, yourself and Turner and the lads. But that was difficult because I was coming to the end then, So with Stewie and stuff, like, in fairness, Stewie, there was no problem with, like, training with the lads, but it was difficult towards the end when you're part time, and then you're trying to be as professional as you can, stay as fit as you can, but you just can't commit to working it or coming in the morning from work. So that's the reality of
Do you think that affected maybe your place in the team around then? Like, do you think it did?
I don't know if it did.
Obviously, it was probably, like, it was an unbelievably strong team, like, back then, wasn't it? Around that era, kind of 2004 to 2008, I suppose, really, like,
Yeah, I think the last under, like, we won the cup in 2007, and like the last year, 2008, when I played, I probably should have retired after that because, like, it was Alan Matthews came in then in 2007, or 2008. The amount of players we had there was ridiculous, and I was never going to play really. But under say from 2003, 2002 on, I played pretty much every week, really.
Yeah.
Like, you had Danny Murphy, Liam Kearney playing left side. I might have played right side. One of them might have come out of the team. Liam went away for a year. I played left back. Danny left. I played left wing. So, I pretty much played every game for for 2002 till when I retired, really. So
it was an unbelievable period, wasn't it? League wins, FA Cup wins, European matches. Looking at some of the games on the Patreon at the moment, you think back how lucky you were to have such a great team back then. But it's something that I touched on with Neil, going back to the football to the way it is now. And I touched on the 2005 game with Neil, and Stephen Kenny was the manager back then. Like, there was no, like, splitting the fullbacks. There was no, like, getting the ball rolled out from the keeper. Like, everything was just, like, boom it up and playing the final third. Then you Georgie Gamble coming onto balls onto the wingers, crossed in the box. It was just a lot more straightforward, wasn't it? It was only kind of opened my eyes to it when I started watching those games from 2004 to 2007 that it was like another sport, really. Like, how completely different now the game is to You know, there's a pressure on nearly every team to full backs, centre backs drop off, get the ball, play through the six, and all that kind of stuff. What's your opinion on that, and what have you seen the differences, or what do you think of it?
Yeah, if I go back to when I started, I would say Cork from '93 to now, as you said, you know, technically the game is developed, but it doesn't mean, like when I go back to and I talk about players like Lee Murphy, Dave Barry, you know, Stephen Nape, all those lads could have played now, you know, that way. But the game has moved on, I know, and it's more technical now and stuff like that. But it doesn't make it a right or wrong. There's no, I don't think there's that wrong with being a direct.
Have you seen a big difference though in the game?
I have, yeah, but I don't see it. I don't see it when I watch schoolboy games, and I don't see that. I don't see teams trying to play like that. I see direct, and I see it about winning and stuff like that. At the highest level, obviously, teams want to play and play well, so it has changed. But you go back down to grassroots, and has that started the grassroots? I'm not sure. I'm not sure it has really. You know,
what's your preference? Are you a bit in between, or you know, are you leaning one way or the other way?
No, listen. Obviously, everybody wants to play the right way, you know. But what, you know, when you get to first team level, results matter. It's about winning. That's all that matters. Nobody remembers the football league. So you could say Cork City or Route One team, or Cork City a lovely football team. But at the end of the day, you know, you live and die by results. That's the truth.
Yeah, and I suppose look, that you retired then after 2008. And I think you had a spell in the Munster Senior League with your own club, Middleton. Was it for a year or so?
Yeah.
After that, and the reason I wanted to touch on that was because you might have seen on Twitter there, and Liam Kearney's article in the Echo last week about possibly, and they said, look, it's all speculation at the moment, but possibly, and I think a couple of the ex-board members and stuff like that had mentioned that they've tried to get maybe a reserve team into the Munster Senior League. To kind of bridge the gap between, you know, players playing 19s and the first team, because something that's come out of the podcast the last couple of weeks, it is a huge gap. Like, you know, it's a big gap, especially, I wouldn't say there's a huge gap between 19s and the team, but especially there is if you're kind of a top Premier team, like there definitely is.
There is a gap. There is a gap between 19s and first team. There is. Like when I started out with Middleton, Cork City always a reserve team. When the likes of Ben Neil Horgan, Liam McSweeney, all those boys. They were always playing school or reserve team football. Killian Lord, they were always playing with Cork City. Now I know when John was the manager and John Caulfield a couple of years ago, they tried to look at it again.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and again to bridge the gap. But it is something that I would see as a good thing. You saw the likes of Sean McLaughlin, who went last year. He came out of Cork City's 19s, went to UCC. Ended up playing men's football, and you need to play men's football, because if you're 19 years of age and you're not playing men's football, well then, you know, you have to be really. So it is vitally important. It's just how do you do it though? It's very difficult. You know, what level do you go in at? You want to be playing Munster Senior League Premier? You know, so that's the truth. So
because it's a higher level than I think people probably give it credit for. Like, you know, and especially I think today's age, in and around the Munster area as well, there's not as many kind of, I suppose, League of Ireland teams open to, like Limerick, I suppose, and someone's not really going to travel to Wexford, which would be close. Waterford are probably a high enough League of Premier team. Cork City the same. I suppose we're probably seeing a lot more, you know, League of Ireland players playing in the Munster Senior League now than maybe you would have over the last couple of years, when maybe Cove were at their very strongest a couple of years back and stuff like that. So the league is definitely improved from that point. So I think the younger players coming through could only, you know, gain from that.
Well, you see, to be fair to some of those lads that are playing Munster League, they're obviously more than capable of playing League of Ireland, be it with Cove or whoever, right? But they're probably working. They're saying they can't commit to getting Fridays off, half days on a Friday, travelling to left and right to the country, committing to 3 nights a week training. It's very difficult, you know. And I suppose
that's why you're probably seeing the first division as a younger players' league, like, isn't it? For that reason, it's all players really in college. It's maybe with the exception of teams in Dublin, because you probably have a couple of teams to choose from up there. Every second game is basically a home game, because it's probably based in around Dublin. Like, you know, it's a bit easier, like, rather than someone that maybe playing for Cove or whatever, they're up and down the country nearly every second weekend. It's tough going, like if someone has a kids or job or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it is. It's just it is. But to be fair, right, if you can commit to it and you can get an opportunity to do it and you can work around it, players should test themselves at the highest level. And what Liam is saying is a very valid point, in the sense that if you're out of 19s football and you're not ready for first team football, well, where are you going to go? You know, so if you're training with Cork City and you're not ready for the first team, then you need to be playing at a level that makes you ready or allows you to develop. You know, and that's very important too.
Yeah, and I think it might take the stigma out of the whole, because there is a bit of a stigma around the Munster Senior League. I feel that, like that you're looked on that he's not good enough for League of Ireland just because you're playing in the Munster Senior League. I think there is a bit of that, because it's an amateur league and all that kind of stuff. I think if the players came down, it would prove that it's definitely a strong bridging point to men's football, like McLaughlin and a few others that have come through that way. But look, moving on to the next thing, you came back to, I suppose, Cork City then when Tommy, and I know you played that year in 2010 a bit towards the end of the year, but was always the eye on that to kind of get into maybe a coaching role? Was that your kind of...
Yeah, it
was
was,
that around
yes.
the same time that it was a car salesman you were at the time, wasn't it? When
I
you were
was
working?
sales, yeah. I was sales, yeah. So at the time, I obviously, 2010, Tommy asked me to play for half season, and I said, listen, I don't really want that, but he said, look, if you play, there's an opportunity to come in coaching. Greg wants to go back. So Greg was working with Tommy then. Greg wants to concentrate on playing. Right. He said, you can end up being number 2. So I said, fine, that was great. It's an opportunity to come in, and you were there at the time. So the first year he'd scrapped the team together, and it was a bit all over the place in the sense that he was picking players, with players coming and going, and it wasn't until the following year really that he was able to put his stamp on the team. Settle down the team. And listen, there was lads flying in from here, there, and every week. I mean, Marky Soul was there for 2 or 3 games and left. That was so. It was a bit hectic that season just to get the club up and running. And then I think in 2011, when Tommy was able to put a structure together and get a team together, then it was more competitive then.
Yeah, and so that was your kind of step into coaching. How did you find that?
I
suppose it was a good incentive because obviously it was being the assistant manager. There always a bit of a link to the dressing room, like, isn't it? And you had just come out of playing, so you had a kind of good link with the players and good understanding of where the players' heads at or where they're at, and the bit of banter and the link between the manager. Did you find yourself comfortable in that role?
I did, but I suppose it is different in the sense that you're obviously not your member of staff then rather than a player. It is, and it is difficult. And to be fair, that year we needed to get out of the first division really as soon as possible. Yeah. And it was, if you look back to that year, it was ourselves, Monaghan and Shells, and there was nothing that you could have split hairs between the 3 of us. Yeah. But it was brilliant. We had, you were there time. We had a great young squad. You had Cummins, Davin O'Neill, Nults was there. Hoggy came back and played. So. We had a fantastic year. Cummins, as I said, was exceptional that year, and we had a great night above in Shells. We got to a League Cup final against Derry at home. We probably didn't do ourselves justice on the day, and then we ended up going to Shells and winning the league, which is probably is right up there with winning the league in 2005, winning the cup, to go and to win the league with the last kick of the game or whatever. Vinny Sull again was brilliant that year.
It was really starting from the ground up, wasn't it? That's probably what gave the satisfaction of it, was it?
It was, yeah. But then you had lads like Nults, Hoggy, Greg, who'd been there in the great times, who dropped down a division. Hoggy had retired. He came out of retirement to come back and play. And these are like stalwarts of the club, really. So again, it was just the most important thing was to get back to the Premier as soon as possible, and we did it, and it was great.
Yeah, that was around the time that you decided to go back to college? Then was it all around then? Was coaching kind of giving you a bit of a draw for the 2 separate decisions, were there?
2 separate decisions, basically. I had made a decision. I'd worked in sales for 10 years, and my football career had ended. And then I had made a decision that I wanted to do something. I said, geez, I have another 25 years of work ahead of me, so I wanted to do something that I was genuinely interested in for the rest of my life. So obviously it's a huge decision in more ways than one. So 2010 then I was accepted in I had a qualification in sports management, so I thought I'd be able to. It wasn't, they said, listen, 2 separate entities, so I had to kind of start at the start again. So we made the decision, and I completed it in 4 years then. So obviously, that was great. But so it just happened to coincide with me coming in with Tommy at the time, so it worked out well in the end.
Yeah, and I suppose you had a bit of a stint under John Caulfield in his first couple of years as well. How did you find that between Tommy and John? Did you see a kind of a momentum lift straight away when John came in? Obviously, John was a club legend and known well locally in the soccer scene, I suppose, with his successful stint at Avondale. Did you see a bit of a rise in the anticipation when John came in? And could you foresee the success that was going to come over the next couple of years?
Could you foresee? No, well, nobody can foresee, but I suppose they're two very different people. Tommy was more a coach, John was a manager, and this is John's strength. And like John, listen, you know, John was happy to delegate to myself and Cots, let us take the sessions, pretty much what he would have done with Liam and Alta, and then he'd have his 10 minutes at the end of the session. But his man management skills were, I find, exceptional, dealing with people, building relationships, and that was his strength. So the minute he came in, I suppose we had the nucleus of young boys coming through. You had Bucks, Garrod had been there a couple of years, John Cav, Lenny, they all straight into the first team. I suppose the best thing, the great strength that his organisation. So we had a back four of, you had Darren Dennehy, who got fit, who'd missed a year through injury pretty much, and Dan Murray, and Dan marked Darren Dennehy's pace, covered Dan. And so that was our nucleus. Nults was unbelievable. Marky Sully brought in then. And I suppose the strength of John was that, right? There was no one else in the country could deal with Marky the way Cots and John did. And I don't mean deal with him because Marky wasn't a handful. Marky was fantastic at, but it's just, he's in a relationship with Marky, and you know Marky, right? Listen, Marky carried the team on his back like an unbelievable player.
Like me and Garrod spoke with last week. Even training like just wasn't for Marky. Like he was just a game player, like wasn't he? You know, like
I remember
drills and passive drills or whatever like that. No, like Marky was like just get the balls out here and have a game. Like but come to match that in, just unplayable. Like you know, just nightmare for defenders.
I remember, right? Marky had come to us in 2005 on trial, 2006 on trial, and he looked at me and said, "Yeah, he's not bad." But like you had Dennis Fenny, all the lads, Roy, all day. So you would say probably he wasn't going to get in head. But like I remember, Mucky, my humble Conroy used to be saying to me about Marky's unbelievable, and I said, "Yes, you reckon?" Yeah, and he said, "Unbelievable." So Marky came out under Tommy. Last 2 games was gone again, right? So he came out under Caulfield, and listen, he was unbelievable for those 3 years he was at that club. Yeah, unbelievable. Like, listen, he's a legend, like because he played up front in his own mark. He had no great pace, but like he'd hold the ball up. He was an animal. He'd head an aeroplane for you.
Great man for a goal as well. Like,
listen, you look at the goals he got and the quality of goals he got. Unreal. And he was listen. Any of the boys that play him will tell you they know how good Mark was. And what,
he became a fan's favourite, didn't he, as well? Because just the way he played, really, he was all heart. And I know he came back for a bit of cameo last year, and even the reception he got off the fans, he was just a pure legend, like, wasn't he?
Yeah, but listen, a great lad, and you know. He would do anything on a pitch for you, anything, but that's what I'm saying. Going back to John Caulfield and Cots, right? Their strength was their ability to deal with Marky and to work with Marky and get as you said there about Marky. Marky's not. He doesn't want to be doing technical drills. Like he doesn't at his age. He just wants to play a game and have a session done and then play on a Friday night or play on a Saturday. That's not me talking badly about Marky because I love Marky, but like that's where he wanted to train, and I think that was John's strength. He knew how to handle Marky and how to get the best out of Marky.
Along the way, I suppose it's something I touched on with Colin. Are you picking up stuff off the different managers with an eye to possibly be a manager in the future? Where was your kind of head at that stage? Because I suppose, look, everyone in their position or whatever maybe have like, you know, half a thought on the future. Was it firmly on the education and getting a job in that regard, or did you kind of still have an eye on football and maybe possibly staying in that realm, or what were you thinking?
Never in football, no. Never. No. Honestly, never. I just my point of view is if I go back in, it would be to coach underage and stuff like that. I just a first team and stuff like that. No, I just think from my point of view, I would have no great grow at being a manager or anything like that. I'd rather work with kids and underage and develop players like that, like we did with the academy. But no, as a manager, no. But like you pick up every person, every manager you play under, you know yourself. You pick up stuff from those people, from Damien Richardson, from Pat Dolan, from Lee Murphy. From John Caulfield, from Tommy, you know, they all have different strengths and they all have different areas where they excel. So you'd be hoping to pick up stuff from them along the way, and I hope I have.
Yeah, and you had a couple of years with the academy, I suppose, with the different teams came in and stuff like that. So you spent a couple of years as the under-15 manager. How did you find that? As I said, I know I touched on it a while ago, but how do you see the whole academy system now? And obviously the emphasis with the academy is to produce players and improve players and bring them on for the city first team and possibly beyond. You know, how do you think it's looking at the moment? How do you think the whole setup of the league kind of
I suppose
players up really, like, you know?
So Dan Murray and I we looked after the 15s from 2017 until this year, right? So we were the first we brought in. So when we started in 2017, the Cork Schoolboys League asked us not to bring in any of the older group. So we ended up effectively bringing in 14-year-old boys playing a year above themselves. And that was brilliant. So a lot of those kids now are in the 17s with Dan now. Dan's the manager looking after the 17s.
Yeah.
So they've been through the system. This is their 4th year in the system, right? So have they developed? I would think they have. You know, I suppose our job as coaches is just, you know, and it's not just football. You're trying to develop the individual too and give them an understanding of what football is like and what life is like around football, you know. So the system works well, have the players progressed. And you know, listen, you're involved, man, you know, clubs do Trojan work. Clubs do schoolboy clubs. But you want the kids to come out and to try and play against the best players in the country. Right? And I'll give you an example of from your own club. You had Aina and Cahill Heffernan last year. And we went to them and we asked them to come out of the Kennedy Cup squad to sign for City to play a year above themselves. And it was a huge decision for the 2 lads. And they made the decision. And like, to be honest with you, they're playing a year above themselves. Some games, it was difficult for them, but they've learned more in those games rather than playing for in-man, winning every week, battering teams. You know, they've been tested. And look, I think the benefit of both boys were captain internationally, Joe Whitmarsh, Harry Nevin. It is working. It is working. But I suppose the long-term goal would be to get them from 15s, 13s, 15s, 17s into the first team. And look, you see at the moment, there is a pathway. You know, a lot of the first team are made up of lads that have come through the system. That's great. And that's what you want at a club. And
I suppose, like, and I actually do believe that the players have probably a better platform now than, let's say, back when I was in the academy. Like, when I was there, you were training the same kind of 2 nights a week with a match at the weekend. Possibly the only probably difference is if we didn't have a match, you were training at the weekend, which probably wasn't the norm in your local club at the time. Like, you know, if your match was off, it was just off and you were off at the weekend, whereas with City, you were in, like, you know, maybe with Stewie doing a double session or something like that. But I suppose Colin touched on it, you know, the players are training 3 or 4 nights a week, recoveries, gym sessions, programs. You know, it can only help the players really, like, and give them the best chance possible of, you know, making the steps and possibly going further.
Well, I suppose technically they're going to develop and tactics are going to develop. They're going to have a better understanding of the game, and that's what you want, you know. So if they can progress. Now, obviously, with any academy, some players are going to progress and some aren't going to progress. But like, I suppose, and Colin, I'll tell you, the one thing that they leave, and there's no guarantees in football, you know that better than anyone, right? But and I said to the kids when we were signing kids, I said the only thing we can guarantee is you'll leave here a better player, and you'll enjoy it and you'll have a great experience. That's the most important thing, really, you know. So it is, and like the only reason I'm not doing it this year is because I couldn't commit to 3 and 4 nights a week, really, with work and stuff like that. Listen, it's a fantastic club. The kids there's a pathway from the 13th all the way through to the first team, and that's crucial that kids know, players know that at the end of the day they're here and they can see lads that are 2 years ahead of them, a year ahead of them, that are going to be thereabouts in the first team. Yeah, and that's what you want, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely, that's great. And I suppose, you said you kind of stepped away from it now this year, focusing on how is the job going and all that, and how has the transition been from, I suppose, spending majority of your life, I suppose, being involved in a team and a club in somewhere as either a player or a coach. You know, how are you finding the teaching? Is it, you're probably at 4 or 5 years now, I'd imagine, is it?
Yeah, so like I'm out since 2014 and pretty much teaching since then, but it's great. Obviously, listen, the difference between a club and a school and environment, there's a huge difference. You know, it would obviously, you with Cork City, you're working with the best players in Cork or some of the best players in the country, really, and the PE environment is different than that. You know, you're doing all different activities, all different sports. So that's great. I love it. I love the challenge that it brings. I'm glad I did it. I probably should have done it years earlier, really, in hindsight. But look, hindsight's 20/20 vision, really, you know, and you go through life on a path, and you know, you're playing football, and that was my sole focus for years, really. And in one sense, you'd say that should have done it earlier. I should have, really. But anyway, look, that's where I am now, so I'm happy where I am. That's it.
That's great. And look, it was great to kind of, and this is what we're looking to kind of do with the podcast, really. You know, obviously it's a lot about Cork City, but kind of getting the backgrounds of people's careers, the pathways, and that's one of the reasons I was eager to get yourself on, because you have seen it and come from it from a lot of different angles, like having you know, either as a player, coach, part-time, juggling education, spells in England and all that kind of stuff. Well, and I think this will be good for players to listen to first and foremost, and also younger players and stuff like that. It gives them a good insight to, you know, the potentials out there on that journey, like.
Well, it is important because you look, even if you look at, say, the team that we had at Cork City and some of the players they played, but they all had other careers. I mean, your football career only lasts for a certain length of time, and there's you've got the rest of your life to work and have a career, another career. But You look at John Kavanagh, Alan Bennett, they're all qualified as teachers. You know, actually, Leon McSweeney, that used to play with us, had a blog up this morning online talking about a very good blog about boys being released in England and what to do if you're released and how to help to support those kids. You know, football is difficult. It's a difficult environment. It's a great career, but it's a challenging career. And, you know, I suppose but the most important thing for any kid coming through is that you've got to see the bigger picture. There's other stuff going on in your life. You know, you've got to take a more rounded approach, and you can't just always solely focus on football. Your education is as important as it really, you know, because the reality is the amount of players that get to the top level and have 10 years there or whatever is small really. But at a club like Cork, there is a pathway for kids to come through, and that's crucial. And as I said earlier, look, with the academy and with the underage structure, that's there for kids to make the first team, and I think that's brilliant.
Billy, thanks for that. As I said, it's I think current players and younger academy players will take a lot from it, and from your experience. And as I said, it's great to see that you've had a kind of always had an outlook, on, you know, on how important the education is and stuff like that. And I think it's something that, you know, it's something that people can learn from and take a lot from as well. So appreciate you sharing all that. We'll move on to a bit of light-hearted stuff there. So we're going to go through teammates. We did this with Garrod last week, and it seemed to go down very well. So again, we're going to take into account all your ex-City teammates, I suppose. And
700 of them. Yeah.
There's a lot of years in there now to be picking players.
Was there any questions there from Ulrich, the lad that you two-footed? Was there any questions there from him?
Can't remember that one at all.
Yeah, good one. Yeah. That's a story from another podcast. Fair play to you.
Very good. Right, so we'll get cracking. Teammates. So the best trainer.
The best trainer. Good question. Oh my God. Bennett, Flinney, Declan Daly, animal training.
Yeah.
Caulfield, great trainer. I actually heard
it's one of those ones. Best trainer could be like, I suppose there's probably two you'd have in mind. One is gives it their all in training, and the other one then was like he's unbelievable player. You know, that kind of way. Like
yeah. Like John O'Flynn, some of the stuff, Georgie, some of the stuff they did in training was exceptional. But in terms of just ultra professional attitude, Declan Daly, all those lads, really, Dave Barry. Actually, it's funny, I heard a podcast actually with Damien Delaney talking about when he came into the Cork. Did you hear that about when he signed for Cork, when he was coming into Cork City's first team? That's there the other day? Very good. He's just talking about the lads, but like all those lads were, he said
it was a huge part. You touched on it there, come back at 20 and really into the trenches with the lads. Like it was kind of that scenario, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were great trainers. You know, there was Stephen Napier like at it every day. You know, there was no, and I said the intensity never dropped. They were always focused. Whereas some sessions you can go to, lads can be drifting or whatever, but they weren't. They were at it every week.
So the worst trainer then?
Dennis. Yeah, Dennis. Awful.
Marky, we touched on Marky a while ago. He got a
Marky. No, Dennis. Yeah, Dennis. Dennis thought he was a player, and he was honestly.
That does separate Dennis, all right. Dennis was a great lad, wasn't he?
Great lad.
Confidence through the roof,
The boys used to be doing skills. Fenny, Gamble, all them. Yeah. And Dennis thought he arrived trying to do skills. He'd a pinball wizard. He'd a touch yeah.
We'll have to get Dennis on the podcast. That could be a 3-hour show. With the stories he has. But
worst trainer Dennis. Yeah, easily.
Fastest.
Bennett.
Benno.
Yeah, machine, absolute machine. We used to do these runs down in UL with Pat Dolan at 6 o'clock in the morning along the river. And Pat used to be on the bike. So we'd start off and you'd have to run. It was about a 4-mile run along the water, 7 o'clock in the morning. Now, Fenny used to be at the back. He was unfittest. And Bennett was a machine. Ridiculous. He'd be finished, honestly, ridiculous. Absolutely. Yeah. Nulty, an amazing athlete. People don't realize Nulty.
I know, yeah.
Yeah,
Nulty was one of those Kenyan runners, wasn't he? There wasn't a pick on him, he used to be flying around the place.
Nulty, Bennett, ridiculous. Georgie, ridiculous athletes. They were all and I'm talking about fastest. Roy O'Donovan pace-wise, but Roy was exceptionally quick. But for striding, Bennett, Nulty, George, serious athletes.
Yeah. More skillful.
Fenny. Neil
Kenny.
Fenn. Yeah,
great.
great touch, great technique, skill, vision. What a touch! Could do anything with a ball. George, good, but Fenny was unbelievably skillful. Yeah.
Funniest few
Dennis.
characters, I'd imagine.
Dennis.
Again.
Dennis, great lad.
They're
But,
linking
like,
the
Dennis-
worst trainer there with the funniest, so there's probably there's probably something in common there between the two of them.
But he was the butt of the jokes, really, and he didn't care. He didn't care. Like,
yeah,
and just good character, good lad. Love the joke and laughing the joke. But very good player too, to be fair, Dennis. But,
Remember, Dennis was in training one day, and the lads, I think it was Murph and Gamble, them signed one. You know, the t-shirt, the polos, he used to come in the gasoline polos, and the whole team signed the polo, put it back up on his peg. Dennis was going on for 3 days, like with the t-shirt signed by all the players. Like, he just didn't care. Like, so he didn't.
No, he didn't care. His fashion wouldn't be his strength. No, it wouldn't be his strength. But didn't care. Like the lads, I tell you, Greg O'Halloran, Greg could do impersonations of Dennis for all day, every day about he spoke. And like there was actually an interview. I remember he scored a goal for Hartlepool one time, right? And so the girl.
That's right. I remember.
And he's talking about the swaz on the ball, and the girl interviewing him was like, "What?" She thought, "I'd be used to the O'Neill's balls now." Like, and
I remember there was a headline in the Echo actually, like referring to the interview.
So
brilliant.
Yeah, I'd say there was an interpreter there. She'd know what he was saying, but he said he was used to the swaz and the O'Neill's balls, and your mum was looking at him going, "What is this young fella talking about?"
I'd say Dennis probably hadn't played Gaelic from about 15 years, like at that stage.
I know, he was like the bomber listing on the pitch, so the size of him. But anyway,
Brilliant. So the best dressed,
Huggy.
Ah, Jesus. You're downgrading some lads there if you're giving
I'm only messing. He's like
he was like a college student until he was about 35.
He's coming in his flares on his motorbike with a helmet, and he take off the helmet and his hair. Yeah, Huggy's the worst. Huggy and Dennis, the worst dressed, best dressed. Fenny, actually, Neil Fenn.
Yeah, always had that London sharp.
Yeah, all the sharp gear, yeah. Danny Murphy thought he was a London boy too, but absolute fraud. Yeah.
The fact that he was about 3 foot probably didn't help him, like, did it?
I know. No, I didn't know.
So best singer. Garrow gives a great story actually about Ty Ryan inside the Oliver Plunkett last week when he rocked up and ran. Any stories like that?
I mean, Greg O'Halloran can do Pavarotti and he can do Nessa Dorma, and he's unbelievable at it. And I mean unbelievable. Like, Greg is a ridiculously good voice. If you actually can, he's up on YouTube and everything doing it. But Greg O'Halloran, unbelievable voice, great singer. Huggy. So we were actually losing to Bowes one day, 2-1 at half time under Pat Dolan, and Pat brought us all in the huddle and made Huggy sing a song at half time. I love you, Huggy. Now you just want to sell the club.
You can see how Huggy was just the manager's pet, like, wasn't he?
I know. So Huggy's voice was quavering and everything. Yeah, so he made him sing. Yeah, so Neil Horgan, good voice. Yeah, but Greg, unbelievable voice.
Brilliant. So team MVP. So I suppose one player that you played with at sea that you kind of thought it wouldn't really work without him.
I would say Dan Murray. Unbelievable leader, great lad, fantastic footballer, great professional, at it every game, and just held the team together. Was the rock, really, the team for years. Put, Alan Bennett alongside them. They were unbelievable nucleus of a team. And then, but Dan played through different generations, came back towards the end of his career, then was brilliant under John Coffey. Ended up in the middle of the park for a couple of games under John. Consistent, Huggy, same 9 out of 10 every 8.5, 9 out of 10, the two of them every week. Just levels never dipped, and I suppose that's very important as a footballer. You said you get someone as the peak and then drop. They were consistent. That's why Dan and Neil probably played so long, because it was so consistent week in, week out.
Yeah, and I know from when I was in around the first team back then, that people used to ask me, like in training, about the lads who was the best player. And like we'd Healers, Gamble, some unbelievable players. But Muzz, was head and shoulders the best player in training, like every day without a doubt. 5 aside, he would always want them on your team. Left foot, right foot, could dribble past players, foot passing. He had everything. He's probably just a yard short pace to make it to a really
it was so
level.
Yeah, his feet were so good that he could have played in the middle of the park. His feet were so good. Technically, he was so good. Now people say to me, "Oh, he's slow." I said, "Yeah, but Like he'd head an airplane and he was unbelievable there. He'd score goals. Like he was ridiculous. And like himself, that's why I think when Benno was there with him, they complemented each other perfect.
Yeah.
When Darren Denny, he was there and Darren was fit that year, they were perfect because Darren was quick and Dan was a footballer, you know. So, but like week in, week out, as you said, consistency levels across training, across matches, exceptional.
Yeah. Right. Your favourite League of Ireland player, maybe outside of Cork City?
Oh, it's a good
You
question.
can go with the
Paddy
current-
McCourt. Paddy
Paddy
McCourt.
McCourt.
Yes, ridiculously good. Ridiculously good. Like he had a skill where he could just stand with the ball and drop his shoulder and go. You know, most people need to run with the ball to get past you. He could just drop his shoulder and go. Brilliant player, gifted player, just naturally gifted, lovely footballer. He was my favourite player, yeah.
Good stuff. That brings us on to a couple of fans' questions. So the first one here we have from Campion the Era. I'm guessing an Akil Campion fan here. If you were still playing right now, would you be pushing to get football back, or would you be waiting for the pandemic to calm down a little bit more?
I suppose, like anybody, you have to go off the guidelines from, especially from Dr. Alan Byrne. While as a player, you'd want to play and you'd want to be fit and you'd want to train with your teammates. The decisions, like, listen, it's out of a player's remit. Those decisions, you've got to abide by the law and the way it's set. Obviously, you see football coming back across Europe. I think hopefully by August, September, it'll be back in Ireland. But you have to adhere to what's, you know, the governing body, and that's the FA. Alan Byrne obviously knows his job inside out. So what can you do? You just have to bide your time. It's frustrating for players. I can appreciate it. It must be very frustrating, but just have to follow the rules.
Yeah. So from Dear Medici on Instagram also, what?
Hang on a sec now. I teach Dermot Deasy.
Oh yeah.
He's one of my students. Yeah, go on.
He said how great you are as well. He probably must be looking for a decent mark on the old test sites.
Yeah.
I left that part out, but he said, what were the main changes you saw between your two spells at City, in the club and within the league?
I suppose the level of professionalism. So from the '93 team to the 2005 team, the level of professionalism. I mean, the 2005 team were training every day. Whereas the other team were working. They all had jobs. They all had other careers. So the football was different, as you said. The football progressed on, and kind of those 12 years in between. That was the biggest change in terms of technical ability. I would say slightly improved in 2005 team, but that's not to say anything less against the 1993 team that won the league, because they were some sensational footballers. But the technical aspect of the game in 2005 has moved on again, like it's moved on, say 13, 14 years from until today. That would be the big difference. Those lads were 20 lads that were full-time training together 6 days a week. That was the big difference.
And what about within the league? Did you see like an improvement as in the league as a whole? Standards and all that, and professionalism?
When I came into the team in '93, every game was like a battle, kick and match, scrap. Like I said, kick, bollock and bite. Like it was fighting, you know, literally. Like
pitches probably weren't great either, like back then, I'd imagine.
Summer football's changed. You know, the pitches are better. Like we played through the winter. You could be playing on the bog. I mean, we used to play in Bishopstown, man. It used to be like a bog. The ball would stop in the mud. The game would be rained off, flooded. Until now, like pitches are like carpets. Pitches are better. Football's better, I would think.
So from William Wallace on Facebook, who was the best player you played with at City? I suppose what I'm gonna like you could take this in a couple angles, but I suppose really the most talented player that he's unbelievable. You know, that kind of a way.
Good question. I don't know. Like I would look at it from the other point of view and say, listen, who maximized everything they had, right? Who made the most of themselves, right? And say who would for the ability, the natural ability they had, who had not the best career, who made the most. Like the likes of Joe Gamble, unbelievable. You know, made a great career for himself with his work ethic. Bennett, great career with his work ethic, right? Fenny, technically amazing, like Premier League player. Fenny, like Dan Murray, technically brilliant, made a great career for himself. So like Neil Horgan, consistency levels over 10 years, you know, so it's like they're all different things, but it's very, very difficult to say one player who had the most talent, because a lot of them are very simple. Roy Donovan, great career. Kevin Doyle, great career. Shane Long, great career. So I don't know, that's a very difficult question, very hard to answer, but I would always go back to the lads that who maximise their ability. And you could say, listen, Alan Bennett came into the team, was playing left wing when he was a kid, and you know, we just had to get him into the team because he was so fit and so. But like technically as a footballer, Benno's game came on.
Talent wise, who was the best, do you think? Just for pure talent. Like, as in, you go into train with him and
Morley,
Morley,
yeah, sensational. Like just goal scorer, just clinical around the box, finisher, sensational. Yeah, very hard question. Very hard question. I don't know.
I suppose just another question here from Colin Marion on Facebook. What are your thoughts on the team today? I suppose Neil's team and how things are at the moment and all that. You know, it's obviously a young team that you've seen a few of these lads coming through.
Yeah, well, listen, I suppose Neil it's a rebuilding job for Neil. You know, I suppose James John's time was a cycle ending naturally. He's had to rebuild the team. He's going to put his own stamp on the team. Obviously, he hasn't had the start he wanted to this season, but I mean, the season is young. Hopefully, when they get back up and running in August, September, Neil will be able to strengthen the squad, get a couple of players in. Probably needs a couple of experienced bodies to help him out. You know, there's a lot of kids there that don't have a huge amount of, you know, Premier Division games, played League of Ireland.
Yeah.
I think Garrod being captain was a good thing. I think that because he knows what it is to means to play with the club and win stuff for the club. So I think it just takes time, and Neil and Joe will have to put their own stamp on it, and that takes time. It's Rome wasn't built in a day. It just takes progression. It takes getting the right players in, and hopefully, when the league gets back and running, he'll be able to do that.
Brilliant. Look, Billy, thanks for taking the time out and coming on to our episode 4 of City Talk and really giving us a good rounded kind of insight into your career, both on and off the pitch. So really appreciate it, and hope you're keeping well and all that.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that.
So that concludes our episode 4 of City Talk. Thank you for listening. You can watch the podcast on our YouTube channel on Rebel Army TV, and you can listen on Apple, iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks to Aaron Howie on production for making it look and sound better. Next week, we'll be back with Assistant Manager Joe Gamble. So as usual, please get your questions over to us on social media, or you can email podcast@corkcityfc.ie. So until next week, folks, thanks very much.